Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. Today we're just going to do some driving around and I'll do a bit of talking about the force feedback now that it's been updated. And we're going to be driving this S13, which is a pretty basic build. It's just got the drift suspension, no wide body kit, just got the wheel spaces in there just to make it look nice. And I'm just running a stock RB26 engine in it, so it doesn't have a huge amount of power, but because we're on the icy roads, it can slide reasonably well. Let's do a quick drift run through this drift sector. At night in the snow. What do we get? Not even 60,000. But this isn't really a full-on drift car. It's more of just a cruising sort of deal. But I'll quickly run you through the settings I'm running now. I've just been sort of playing around with it for a little bit. So I've got, the usual. One thing I wanted to address too is I've seen a few people recommending running the outside dead zone at 20. I highly recommend not doing that, because essentially all you're doing is lowering the degrees of rotation, but you're doing it in a way that's actually reducing the input resolution of your wheel. If you're gonna do that, you're better off just to use the degrees of rotation option either in the game or on your wheel itself. You'll get better resolution and you'll still get the same effect, because literally all you're doing is, say 100% is at 900. The further I pull this down, full lock becomes lower and lower and lower, and at 20 the full lock will be at about 180 degrees, because 20% of 900 is about, well, it's not about, it is 180. So I'd avoid using that technique that I've seen people suggesting, and it's not a new suggestion either. People suggested this back on Forza 5 and Forza 6 as well, and I've never been a fan of it, and I don't think some people that are using it actually understand what it's doing. So yes, it may feel better, but you're better off to use the degrees of rotation setting rather than messing with the dead zone. And onto the good stuff. So I got my force feedback scale at 65 because I found running it at 100 in this game actually causes very severe clipping. So you don't want to run it at maximum because you will lose out on some of the finer details, like especially edge of grip. Vibration is off because we don't like the vibration. Center spring and damper are also off. Force feedback understeer is at 100. Because this is where we get the most or the least amount of force feedback drop off when we start to push past the peak grip of the tyre, and the minimum force we're running at 40. And these settings feel alright to me. I mean, everyone's experience is going to be different, but this is what I've found feel pretty good. The one thing I don't really like though is the way the road bumps and everything are conveyed through the force feedback. I'm actually starting to really hate it. It feels okay on these snow roads. It doesn't seem as severe as when it was dry. But once the steering wheel gets a bit loaded up and you start hitting the bumps, it really does jerk you around a bit. And the other thing I wanted to touch on too, it's not just your force feedback settings you need to consider now, you also need to consider the tuning setup you use on the car, because the suspension tuning will actually affect the force feedback calculations now. So running a higher caster angle will give you higher mechanical torque or mechanical trail feedback, which is what you want for drifting. Racing maybe not so much. but it's just something that you need to consider. If you set up your suspension really stiff, the force feedback is probably going to feel really stiff and kind of jerky. So in this build here, I've actually got the suspension quite soft and with a really soft front anti-roll bar, just to try and remove some of those really sharp stabs that come through when you're sort of high load cornering. Oops, and we've come off the road here. Ooh, just avoid all the rocks. So yeah, at least I'm able to actually drive the game now and not just completely fly off the track because I can't feel what's happening. I mean, I can sort of comfortably throw the cars around now, whereas before I had no chance of doing this. I did try and drive one of the Formula Drift cars, and I found it to be a bit of a nightmare to try and drive, just because of how much steering lock the thing has. And I think it has some really fat grippy tyres on it too, which doesn't really help, especially on simulation steering. But this one with the drift suspension, I know you don't have the option to tune the steering angle on this like you do on Forza 7, but it definitely feels like you have about that 60 degrees of steering angle, or close to anyway, because it can hold some pretty big angle when the car's got enough power to do it, that is. We've got a decent angle there, and we're only at about halfway to full lock, so still plenty of steering lock to play with. See, I haven't drifted on many of these roads yet, so ooh, on the wrong side of the road. So good place to park. Yeah, the road bumps definitely seem very much exaggerated to me, and also finding that just the build-up of force seems very kind of non-linear, if I can put it that way. Like the lateral force on the tyres doesn't seem to be consistent with all the time with the force that comes through the steering wheel. I mean, at least it's drivable. I would be extremely happy if they add the data out so we can use our custom force feedback that's still being developed by First Plateau. That would be an absolute dream, playing this with the customer force feedback. But for now, I mean, I'm pretty happy just being able to drive the game now without flying off the track. So let's
People are coming up
go
to me asking whether or not you hacked the speed zone data. Should have seen their faces when I told them your scores were real. Fancy proving them wrong again?
and I just want to try and find an area where we can drift about. So as you can see, I haven't explored very much of the map yet. So let's that looks like a big roundabout. What have we got up here? Well, that looks like it could be a nice little section. Let's go there and see what that brings us. Go for a bit of a cruise.
Turn around when it is safe to do so.
It's not too far, only 12 k's away. Shouldn't take too long to get there. So we're not obeying the speed limits. Let's make it a bit more interesting and get rid of that driving line. And let's chuck on simulation damage, and just for shits and giggles. Probably gonna fly off and smash into a tree, but let's just give it a go. Where is the line? I'm going blind here. There it is. Okay, let's see how quickly we can destroy this S13. Just gonna watch my mini-map to see what sort of corners are coming up. This is nice. I really like the graphics on this game. Oh, that's a board, and we missed it. Don't want to go back. Get to our little drift section.
In 400 meters, turn right.
Ooh, let's dodge the trees. Oh yeah. There's no way I'm going to be able to catch any of these other players. Wait, what the hell was that? Sounded like a puddle, but I didn't see any puddle. This feels very fast to have simulation damage on. Yeah, the road, considering, ooh, Jesus, considering it's icy, it still feels like it has a lot of grip. To be honest, I would love to see them implement a hardcore mode so the grip levels are a bit more realistic. Because this kind of just feels to me like driving on a normal road. It's not really slippery like you would expect an icy road to be. And I have driven on an icy road earlier in the year when I went on holiday to the US. I got to drive around in Alaska, which was quite scary. First time driving on ice.
At the roundabout, take the second exit.
Second exit, my ass. Oh, can I hold it? Munch the curb just a little. Oh, not quite. Once I get a bit more credits, I'll probably just put a slightly bigger turbo and intercooler on this. It'll probably be a really nice car to swing around.
Meters, turn right. Turn right. At the roundabout, take the second exit.
Roundabout? Oh, that's a little roundabout. I love the diversity of roads on this Horizon 2. It just seems so much more diverse than what Horizon 2
meters, turn left.
and Horizon 3 were.
Turn left.
this section. I think it's just up ahead to the right here. And even that section down the bridge there looks pretty good. Oops. Wrong button. Oh, that's steep. And that's a truck. Don't hit the truck. That's a pretty tight section. Let's try and go it downhill. Wait for that truck to get out of the way. Start from the correct side of the road. Oh, that's a curb. Oh, lots of traffic. Ooh, Jesus. Lots of traffic. And not as good as I thought it would be. It looked a little bit bigger than what it was on the map. Let's see if we can find another spot. So I want something a little bit more open than that one. What else have we got up here? Well, that could be interesting. Let's try there.
In 400 meters, turn right.
That was
Turn
a
right.
terrible rev match. Oh, here's a better roundabout. Exit stage left.
100 meters, turn right.
Let's
100
touch the
meters,
cars.
turn sharp left.
Oh, don't tell me it's a dirt road. Oh, let's give it a go on the dirt. You saw how terrible the dirt was for me last time before the update. See if we can drive a rear wheel drive Sylvia. Oops, I turned the wrong way.
When it is safe to do so. In 100 meters, turn sharp right.
Oops. Let's cut the corner just a little bit. Oh, that's tight. Just knock over all the bollards would be right. So as you can see, even get on the right side of the road. Even the off-road sections now are much more enjoyable. That the settings have been fixed up. Ooh. I wonder if that damaged our car at all. Let's have a look. Make sure I don't crash. There we are. Oh, our tyres are getting warm. Another roundabout. section. God damn that gear grinding noise. Ooh, damn it. Just damage our front bumper. There's another roundabout. Oh, it's a double roundabout. Anyone wants to practice some drift moves, it would be a good place to do it. Nice and low speed, couple of low speed transitions. You can practice extending your lines. Not like that, that was horrible. Out of my way. It's a bit of an awkward spot to try and figure out, but is it doable? Yes, it is. Alright, I think I've babbled on long enough. That's going to wrap up this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Cheers.